Hello and welcome. This is Out Motorsports. My name is Jake and this is the 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E. This is not the first all-electric Ford on the market. However, this is perhaps the most fanfare that has ever been generated around an all-electric Ford product. This is the first electric Ford that is really going to be hitting the mainstream, and this car has been talked about quite a bit over the last year. It is going to be a large competitor to the smaller Teslas, the Model 3 and Model Y, and people who have ordered them are starting to take delivery as we speak. So let's talk about what the 2021 Mach-E is, and then we'll see how it is to drive. Now, as far as what the 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E is, this is a completely new architecture for this vehicle. Although Ford is calling it a Mustang, it's not actually related to the Mustang gas-powered lineup, except for the name and some of the styling. Now, like it or not, I think it's a brilliant move for the sake of marketing because non-car people are going to say, have you heard about that new electric Mustang? So enthusiasts, yes, I know we don't like it because it's not a gas-powered Mustang, but those are not going anywhere. They're still here, so it's just a part of the lineup. And of course, with being called a Mustang, that implies a little bit of sportiness as well, so we'll get into that. Now, as far as performance is concerned, you can get several different, effectively, horsepower and torque combinations, as well as several batteries and several drive wheel combinations. So Ford offers this car as a rear-wheel drive setup or an all-wheel drive setup. They also offer a standard range battery or an extended range battery. Now, this car in particular has the all-wheel drive and the extended range battery, which is an 88 kilowatt hour battery that is good when paired to all-wheel drive for 270 miles. If you're looking for a little more range, you can get the extended range rear-wheel drive, and that will be good for 300 miles. This car is a premium trim. This is considered basically the top-level trim unless you go for the even faster Mach-E GT, which is coming out very shortly. As far as how much power and torque this particular car makes, the Mach-E extended range all-wheel drive premium, that is a mouthful, makes 346 horsepower and 428 pound-feet of torque. That is good for a sub 5-second 0-60 run, which may not sound quick in the world of Teslas that are doing allegedly under 2 seconds 0-60s, but honestly in the real world it's plenty punchy. And as far as curb weight with all of this, we always have to talk about how much a car weighs because horsepower is just one figure that actually contributes to how this thing feels on the road. Now, Ford does not have weight figures published. There are probably too many of them to publish given all of the different battery, drive wheel, you name it type of options. However, Motor Trend did a review of the same configuration car, premium trim, extended range, all-wheel drive, and their car came in at 4,800 pounds. So that's what you're working with. A lot of EVs are fairly heavy because of all the batteries in the floor. Now, speaking of those batteries, it's also important to mention this is shaped like a crossover. However, your ground clearance is not actually going to be very much because all of these batteries take up vertical space in the floor. Your ground clearance is actually only 5 inches and change. So if you're thinking you're gonna buy a Mach-E to go off-roading, you might wanna reconsider it because the ride height's not actually that great. Now, as with any electric car, the biggest question most people have is around charging. If you haven't owned an EV before, it can be kind of intimidating to talk about how you charge a car back up because you're used to going to a gas station and adding a ton of range to your gas-powered car in not a lot of time. Now, with most EVs, the Mach-E included, you'll install a charger at your house and you'll probably plug it in most of the time in the evenings when you're not driving it, and you'll start every day with a full charge. However, charging on the road, whether you're out and about like I am now or on a longer road trip, is always a concern. You'll notice we're here at an Electrify America station near my home in Falls Church, Virginia, and that is important for two different reasons. The first being the fact that Ford has partnered with Electrify America for the sake of some free charging. Everyone who purchases a 2021 Mustang Mach-E will get 250 kilowatts of free charging, which with an extended range Mach-E like this one is good for about 3 tankfuls if you're totally dead. The other important thing about being at an Electrify America station is what Ford has done with Electrify America and several other charging brands. With other EVs, when you pull up to a charger that's here in public, you'll have to either swipe a card that you've pre-registered for or get out your credit card and kind of fumble around before you can get started charging. With the Mach-E, Ford has partnered with several of these main charging companies so that you enter all your credit card info in your Ford Pass app, and then you don't actually have to plug in anything when you get to the charging station except the cord. You truly just open the charging port door, plug in the charger, and walk away. Now we're here at an Electrify America station. We're gonna see how that actually works because I've been given some free charging miles with this car. So let's plug in and see how that goes. Now, as far as charging speed is concerned, the Mach-E can charge up to 159 kilowatts. That's how fast it can take the juice supplied by the charger. You obviously have to have a charger that can supply that much power to the car to even consider charging at that speed. These Electrify America stations can charge at 150 kilowatts, which is basically the car's full capacity. So that is really, really great. If you're at some other level 2 chargers that are not considered DC fast charge, those can only charge at a rate of 6.6 kilowatts in some cases. So you really want to use one of several free apps or the car's built-in navigation to see where you're gonna go charge if you're out and about, so you're not stuck charging for a very long time. The other important thing to mention with the Mach-E that is common among every electric car is that the charging speed changes based on how full the battery is. Ford claims you can add 61 miles of range in 10 minutes on a DC fast charger like the one we're at here. However, I'm currently sitting here with a battery that's got about 65% charge already. It is not close to being empty yet. So I don't know if the car will accept all of that charge at 150 kilowatts. It'll probably throttle it down. And when you get above 80% of a full charge, it will significantly slow the charge speed down, which is really common to all EVs. It takes a lot to keep the batteries cool as you're shoving all that juice back into them, and above 80%, you have to slow the charge rate so that you don't damage the batteries. So with all that, let's see how this charging experience is. Like I said, I shouldn't have to enter my credit card info or anything else. I should be able to just plug the car in and go. And then we'll get it out on the road and see how it is to drive on a longer driving route. I've put together a route of 220 miles outside of the DC metro area that involve some mountain passes, some nice twisty roads. Like I said, this is part of the Mustang family, at least in name, so it better handle at least well enough. So let's see how that is on some mountain roads. All right, so as far as charging the Mach-E at an Electrify America station, all of my info is in my Ford Pass app, so all I should have to do is plug this thing in. So pop the charge door open, the port is already exposed, you just flip down the little flap to add the DC fast charge contacts, grab the connector, and plug it in. And you'll hear it latch onto the car. It says connecting to vehicle, and it should start. And there it goes. Oh no, it doesn't know that I'm here. It says pay by credit card. Okay, so it doesn't know that I'm here. This is a fun thing. We're gonna open the Ford Pass app and see why I'm not able to do this. And right now the screen says connecting to vehicle, charging, start, error. That's gone well. Let's try this again. I should not have to pay for anything. Yeah, this has not gone well. Well, in this case, I don't know where all of my free miles went, but we'll go ahead and pull out the old Visa and we'll, it timed out.
One eternity later.
All right, so we got the charging to work. Unfortunately, the charge and go did not work, but I was able to stick my credit card in and get this to start. You can see here the state of charge is 64% right now, and it is telling me how fast it's charging. Like I said, the car can take up to 159 kilowatts of charging speed. It is doing 86 right now, so it is still charging fairly quickly. A lot of other EVs can't even charge at 85, 86 kilowatts. However, this is not the maximum charging speed. So we'll give it a minute and see how much charge we get. I don't need to charge it up at all. This is all an academic exercise. However, we will charge it to 100% before taking our trip. All right, so it is Saturday morning. I am mildly caffeinated and I just left, ironically enough, a gas station where I met up with a few friends. We are heading out to the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia to get on some twisty roads, get out of DC, and really explore the handling prowess of the Mach-E as well as everyone else's cars that are behind me. Now, I started the day with a 100% charge. The car said I had 258 miles, and we are leaving the gas station, which was about an hour from home, with 209 miles on the guess-o-meter. I have 85% charge. So not all bad. What I'm curious about is our route is not going to be anywhere near 209 miles. However, going through the mountains, really pushing the car a little bit, calling for a lot of power demand going up these mountain roads, how much is that going to suck down some power? Now, the good news is there are some charging stations along the way. If I need anything, the car's navigation will help me out. And all right, well, we're not quite at the twisty part of all of this. However, as far as how the Mach-E is as a regular car on a regular highway doing regular car things, I really enjoy it. I think the seats could stand to be a little bit more heavily bolstered, given they're calling this part of the Mustang family. However, if you get the Mach-E GT, which is coming out very shortly, it will have different seats that are a little more aggressive. The other thing I don't know if I totally love about this car is the suspension. We'll see how it feels when we're in the mountains. It feels really nice on flat highways, but around town on lousy city roads, it is not the best. It's pretty stiff. Now, I know the GT is going to have some sort of adaptive suspension, so if you're looking for a little more control over how the car feels based on your driving environment, the GT might be the one to go for. This is not a bad ride by any means, but it is just a stiff suspension. I think both the compression and rebound are both a little much for a city environment if you really are looking for a cushy suspension over everything else. There are 3 different drive modes on this car. There is Whisper, Engage, and Unbridled, and they do different things to make the car feel supposedly a little more sporty or more eco-friendly. I've been driving it in Engage, which is kind of the middle of the road setting. I will put it in Unbridled for the sake of the mountain roads, because clearly that's what you do if you're driving a Mustang-y crossover through the mountains. All of the drive modes will enable one pedal driving, so you don't have to use the brake pedal, and that is really nice. It is not the most aggressive form of regen braking compared to other EVs I've driven. However, it does work pretty well once you get used to it, and you don't really have to touch the brake pedal that much. And I think that's a great thing, because the brake pedal on this Mach-E is pretty sensitive. There's maybe a quarter inch, half inch of travel before it really bites down hard, and it's really tough to get used to. I suspect owners of these cars will get used to the brake pedal feel over time, but if you're first hopping in one, you will notice the brake pedal is super duper sensitive, and it's annoying more than anything. But once you're on the move, you get a little more comfortable with the one pedal driving, and also how much you can actually put your foot down on the brake pedal if you need to use the service brakes and not just the regen. All right, and we are heading up the mountain. This is headed up toward one of the entrances to Skyline Drive, and everything is nice and twisty. There are some passing spots here, which is great if you end up with some folks who are a little slower. Usually they're pretty aware and they'll move over and let you go. Now, what's interesting is the brake pedal, which I found to be very sensitive around town, actually feels nice and linear here on these back roads. This is actually quite nice. And obviously with any EV, there's a benefit of having your batteries in the floor. You have a very low center of gravity, and it helps with your turn-in, because like I said, this is a heavy car. This is 4,800 pounds. And what I'm loving is that we're getting tire squeal, but this thing is rotating. And we're not going excessive speeds. We're having a great time, but we're getting some tire squeal, but it's turning. And with the all-wheel drive in particular, it's willing to, dive into a corner, and just as you throttle out of it, you'll feel it pivot. The electric power and torque, it just comes in. I did read some other reviews where people said obviously this car is more torque than horsepower, and you can feel it when you really want to lay into things. And that's the case, but it is still fairly quick. It's not like an unsettling amount of torque versus horsepower. It doesn't run out of steam when you start pushing it really hard. For how heavy this is in particular, it feels pretty good. And I mentioned the brake pedal feel is much improved on these back roads, but the other interesting thing is I'm just doing most of this with one pedal driving. I am just lifting throttle, it's braking, it's tucking in, and it's so cool to be able to just modulate your right foot and have it do what it wants. I can't believe I'm doing this in a 4,800 pound crossover. It just feels so nice. The turn-in is good. The steering feel when you're pushing it is actually pretty good. And it's all very confidence-inspiring. I'm very excited to see the GT by comparison, but this is, for most people, going to be more capable than they need. And when they put it through its paces on a back road like this, it is going to be just fine. And then you can put your foot down and you'll just go. You'll just walk right away from people. And with that, we are down at the bottom of the mountain. We've gone through that pass up by the entrance to Skyline Drive. Really, really impressed with how this Mach-E handles. I think it is absolutely worthy of the Mustang name. However silly a lot of you might think it is also a brilliant marketing move. And Ford has certainly built a car that delivers on the handling prowess of the model name. I do think that the Mach-E GT will probably appeal to more of the enthusiast crowd than this particular Mach-E. They're really going for mainstream acceptance with most of these, which is pretty obvious with some of how it's equipped and how it's set up inside. But it's still a good car. I really, really enjoy it. And as far as range is concerned, I've been beating on it pretty good, and we've dropped it down to 62% or 151 miles. I will absolutely still have range left to finish our drive, stop for lunch, and drive all the way home and not have to plug in to charge at all. I probably will because I'm going to be driving it more this evening and tomorrow. However, I could certainly make it home, and if I had a charger at home, it wouldn't be a problem. All right, and today's fun drive in the mountains has concluded. I did decide to stop at an Electrify America charging station because, like I mentioned, I don't have charging at my personal apartment, and I wanted to keep using the Mach-E the rest of this weekend before they come pick it up on Monday. So as far as the statistics, my total drive today was 190 miles, and the car, when I arrived at the charging station, said I had another 61 miles to go, which gives you a total of about 251 miles, given the type of driving I was doing. Now, when I left my apartment this morning at 100%, the car said 258 miles. So the guessometer, as a lot of EV owners like to call it, was off by about 7 miles, or in reality, those 7 miles got consumed with all of the mountain-type driving I was doing, a lot of heavy acceleration. We were definitely driving a little hoontastic here and there. I have been plugged in for about 11 minutes, and I've added another 61 miles to the range. I'm gonna leave it for a few more minutes because I would like a little bit more range than that. However, that perfectly matches Ford's claim of being able to DC fast charge and add 61 miles in 10 minutes. So that is very accurate, as is the general estimate from the Mach-E of your total range when you are leaving anywhere. So that is all. As always, please be sure to subscribe right here on YouTube. Give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, please stay safe, be well. We'll see you again soon.